will be the one who leads and became a symbol. And so I just put this two elements are very
That's very helpful.
strong. Thank you so much.
It's very, very helpful. You put a number of important issues on the table. It's a moment when the hopes of the world really are focused on the success of you and your colleagues. Aref, you have a very wide-ranging background. You're serving now as the transitional ambassador to the UAE from Libya, but you've also a background in the technology sector and a background as a philosopher and a theologian. So let me ask you, short-term and long-term, you were part of the stabilization team. What was that like, and how is that working? And long-term, where do we go from here?
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulullah, wa ala sahbihi wa man wala. First of all, I would like to say something about joy to begin with. And maybe I'm talking about joy in a sad voice, but it's very, very important. Today is a great day in Libya's history. Today is a day of liberation. And we must speak of joy. Yet it is a kind of joy mixed with sadness and a very heavy sense of responsibility, because it is a joy for a victory and a liberation that has been achieved through tremendous sacrifices by thousands, literally thousands upon thousands of young people, and thousands upon thousands of mothers who are grieving for their dead children, and for the injured and the amputated and the raped and the handicapped and the disappeared. So it is a very strange emotion that fills the heart today, an emotion of happiness and joy, but one of responsible joy and one of respectful joy that respects all these victims and all these heroic young people that have given us our freedom and given us dignity back and given us life back. Today, Libya is alive again, and it's a great emotion of coming to life again. Yet, this joy has many responsibilities associated with it. We must not squander the sacrifices of the young. We must not squander the pain of the mothers and the children. We must build something with all this pain. And this joy must translate into concrete, practical, real progress on the ground in all areas, most importantly in the areas of healthcare, education, taking care of the young, making sure that there are jobs for everyone, making sure that everybody can have an equal opportunity to participate in the reconstruction, the stabilization, the rebuilding of a great Libya, a Libya that will be a lighthouse for this entire region. It was my privilege and honor to have sat as a student at the feet of young people who were part of the stabilization team, over 70 young men and women who worked tirelessly day and night in order to develop first a stabilization plan, an extensive one, and then to implement it. And yes, it wasn't completely implemented, and some parts were implemented in ways that were unforeseen, but it was an utter joy to at my age, sit humbly at the feet of young people who showed me how to be brave and how to work for dignity and freedom, and who, without asking for anything, simply gave and gave and gave. And I am really honored to have worked under the wise leadership of Chairman Ahmed Jehani, who gave us the space and the framework in which we could work and thrive. So for me, I am filled with utter confidence. It's really amazing. I don't think I've ever been as confident in Libya and Libyans as I am today. I feel utterly optimistic, totally optimistic, not because of anything external, not because of money that Libya has, not because of resources, but simply because of the young people that I have come to know. They will bring Libya into new horizons, unforeseen by any of my generation or the generations who are older than myself. They will make it, and they will make it big. And they're already making it. I mean, there are dozens of newspapers already, and dozens of civil society organizations, and dozens of women rights movements, and dozens, endless activity and creativity. Libya, like a forest that was burned, looked dusty. It looked like ash. It looked gray. Only Gaddafi's ugly face appeared all over the place. And no one would have predicted that life will again spring forward and spring up and arise. And yet, just as in after fires of forests, young shoots of green are coming up in unprecedented ways and in ways that are totally unpredictable. I have utter faith in God that just as He has liberated Libya through the efforts of these young people, that Libya will be a great nation again, and it will actually become greater than it ever was. And there are, the medievals spoke of three cardinal virtues, and they are shared by many of our faiths, be it Islam or Christianity or Judaism or Buddhism for that matter. These three cardinal virtues are faith, hope, and charity. And indeed, I have seen in these young people tremendous faith, tremendous hope, and tremendous charity. It is through charity, through love, that Libya will live again. And that is how stabilization happens. Stability, after all, is a grace, is a gift of God. We call it in Libyan, in Arabic, we call it sakina. So this sakina is a gift that is gifted to a people by God when they act towards each other with love. I have seen tremendous love, tremendous mutual compassion between Libyans, and I am utterly confident that Libya will achieve great things. I salute the young people who made this possible, and I salute them as my teachers, for I have learned tremendous things from them. And I salute the older generation of Dr. Ahmed Jehani, not so much older, who actually gave me and my colleagues the space to work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aref.
Thank you very much. A very inspiring comment on your recent activities there, and an optimism that I hope we'll all come to share. Mohammed Addarrat, you have experience also in the private sector as general manager for Lexmark, but are also participating in the transitional governance arrangements as the Deputy Secretary General of the Opposition within the government as it exists. What is political transition for you? How do you see the process unfolding and the space for opposition?
Thank you, David, and thank you for this opportunity. I echo the sentiment that Dr. Aref mentioned. I think this is a mutual feeling that all Libyans have. This is something that is our launching pad and is basically where we take off from. And also, I bring a perspective, as you mentioned, of a Libyan who was forced to live in exile for 29 years. And I developed myself in a career in the technology and business sector in a Fortune 500 company. But also, my primary objective in life was working for this opportunity. In my involvement in the opposition with the National Front for the Salvation of Libya. And now it's basically, as they say in the U.S., be careful what you wish for. Now that wish is here, now it's upon us to go and get it. And this is really the excitement that we have. And I think the political process, as far as the long term, so I'll start with the long-term view here, is that I think political reform cannot be separated from all the other reform. Okay, so it's basically a dependency on economic reform and on social reform and military reform, as Dr. Ahmed mentioned, and all these things, they're all interdependent. So therefore, I think the long-term vision, these dependencies have to be clearly defined, and the key milestones have to be set and communicated clearly to the Libyan people and to the international community. And I think, if I can sidestep a little bit to the short term here, is that in these next few days, starting with today's liberation announcement, this is a key milestone defined in the constitutional announcement or that was declared by the National Transitional Council. This is one of the key milestones. Okay, the next key milestone is the formation of the transitional government in the next 30 days. And then after that, we have the election for the National Congress in 8 months as defined in this roadmap. So therefore, these key milestones have to be clearly defined and why they're key. And the second point, as far as the value of the political reform, is that we have to avoid the sense of paternalistic approach or paternalism, in the sense of a group of the elite have to really do this work and prepare a nice state called Libya with a constitution and basically hand it over to the Libyan people to run it. And sometimes, coming out of 42 years of a one-man show, sometimes people want to have a tendency to go towards that. And this is really very dangerous. And I think as leaders in this process, we have to be very inclusive, as well as create platforms for this inclusiveness from now. It's not in 8 months, it's not in 30 days, it's from day zero. And this sense of inclusiveness is probably, to me, the most important element because it creates three things. For the third point that I wanted to make is that it creates accountability, transparency, okay, and I think Mustafa Abdul Jalil, our president, mentioned that the slogan for this next phase is transparency, and I think that's key. And then the third thing the third thing is made up of two parts, which is credibility and capability. And this is something where Libyan people, especially the young Libyan people, as Dr. Jibril just mentioned earlier, they will not accept half-ass. Okay, they will not accept anything done halfway. It has to be done properly because the price we've paid is very high, and therefore the quality of what we get for this price must be really high. And therefore the credibility and the capability of the people that lead, whether it's the transitional process or the state process, the post-constitution referendum process, has to be very high. And I think with those high expectations comes high responsibility, as Dr. Aref mentioned, and I think the duty is upon us Libyans with the help of the international community, but I think we really have to look ourselves in the mirror when it comes to launching this phase. It cannot be done elsewhere.
Thank you. So legitimacy and transparency from the immediate now forward as an important element in the legitimacy of the process and the legitimacy of the... we come now to Hatim Gheriani. So you are with HSBC in Libya, but you're a transitional figure in the sense you've spent 14 years working with the Libyan government and were very instrumental in helping to set up the Sovereign Wealth Fund and so forth. So, and are now part of the steering committee for the temporary financing mechanism in Libya. I guess short-term, the question that I would have for you is, are the new guys really new? Or is this a rebranding exercise for some who've been involved in the government? And long-term for you, where does Libya go from here? Chairman Jibril spoke about the need for a Libya that is not oil-dependent. What are the other domains into which you see the economy moving over the coming years?
Thank you very much, David. I would like to, I add my voice to my colleagues who spoke before me. Obviously, I share their hope and faith in the future of Libya. However, that's not to say it won't be challenging. The legacy of 42 years of the Gaddafi regime, nobody should be naive and expect that things will change overnight. It will take time. However, a great deal of work needs to be done, and there are a lot of people who we experience from the last 14 years who have are trying to get in through the back door again to the NTC. And this is going to be a challenge. Nobody is advocating de-Baathification as what happened in Iraq. However, we must put in place the proper checks and balances and the proper institutions that will never again allow the old ways of the Gaddafi regime to come back again. This is what I have to say about what's happening right now in the short term. As for the long term, it's obvious. I mean, nobody should depend on oil. Libya is a very rich country, and there's an abundance of other resources. Libya can play a great role in travel and tourism. This is a sector that has as yet been completely undeveloped. We have also renewable energy. We have a vast Sahara Desert. Solar energy is something that can be exploited, and exporting this to Europe. We can create a financial hub in Libya. I wish to see this, the Benghazi Financial Center, perhaps, and it can be a hub to service Sub-Saharan Africa as well as North Africa and Southern Europe, and so many others. I mean, Dr. Jibril spoke of his vision for 2025. So there are a lot of ideas that can be pursued.
Great, thank you very much. Well, let's stay with the economy for just a moment. So